Disclaimer, this video is in no way meant to disrespect the recently deceased. This video is instead meant as a way of analyzing the messaging that the recently deceased so often pushed forward, and as a way of offering his supporters and people who would like to continue his messaging a bit of counter reasoning. I want to make you think a little bit about what you believe. That's all.
Hello and welcome to my channel. So before I get started with this video, I want to say that this video is in no way meant to disrespect the name of the recently deceased. This video is in no way meant to celebrate the passing of the recently deceased. This video is simply meant to offer a bit of analyzation of the legacy that was left behind and my own personal response to what I see as the fallacies within that legacy. Of course, you saw the title, you know that I am talking about Kevin Samuels, who was a huge presence on this platform and beyond. I'm not quite sure when his career started. I want to say 2016, but he became a behemoth of the online world, specifically the online manosphere. You know, he spawned a legion of fans who, I don't know if it's in jest that they are called the Samuelites, but I do know that they are called that. Just over 1 million subscribers here on YouTube. And so when he passed about 2 months ago now, it was deeply felt. It was deeply felt. Social media stars pass all the time, especially really quickly, especially really, really young stars on TikTok. Has anybody noticed that? Like kids between the ages of like 16 and 20? What is going on with that? Crazy. But social media stars pass all the time. And normally it's like, oh, or people will just write something underneath their picture, or they will, that's it. But because of the large effect that Mr. Samuels had on his audience when he passed, tributes, tattoos, people were getting, his face on shirts. It was big. What was so interesting to me was he was a big member of the urban manosphere. A lot of people, I want to say, if you were not a person of color, a Black person, you may not have even known who that was. If you were not a Black person of a certain age, you may not have even known who he was, known what he talked about. And I bring that up because when he passed, his death wasn't just covered in Gossip magazine. It wasn't just covered on the Shade Room. It wasn't just on, not Radar Online, but there's another one that's The Neighborhood. All these Instagram or online, mostly urban news sources. We're talking about Time magazine. We're talking about People magazine, TMZ. A lot of different mainstream news sources covered this because the reverberations were so huge, because his impact was so deeply felt. Personally, when it first happened, I did record a response and like how I was feeling about it. I recorded it on my little podcast that I do now just on YouTube now just on Patreon called Very Necessary. Me and a friend who I do it with, my childhood friend, we're adults now, but one of my my longest friends, one of the friends that I've known for the longest, we get together, we talk about things, and she and I got on and we talked about this for so long that I had to split the episode into two. And, we just talked about our feelings about the movement, and we talked about our surprise that, he passed and the way that he passed. And one of the things that I also said was I felt kind of weird about this video that I'd made at the beginning of the year, because I was like, should I take it down as a disrespectful? But I wasn't necessarily talking about him in that video. I was sort of talking about any man who ascribes to like the way of thinking that became popularized by him. But I decided not to take it down. It didn't even break 100,000 views. It wasn't, you know, I don't even think I said his name. I think I called him He Who Shall Not Be Named in the video. So, but I decided to keep it up because it was something that I made. But yeah, we just talked about it. We talked about it in detail, and it was very raw, and it was very like, we did not hold anything back. So that conversation will stay on Patreon, but I did want to take a moment to respond to it here because I had an interesting connection to Mr. Samuels. Last summer when my Pretty Privilege video went viral, you know, lots of videos go viral on YouTube all the time, but for some reason my video was sent to him. And I know that he did an Instagram live on it. I know that he talked about it on his channel. I know that a lot of his people that like subscribe to him and like his work came over and left some extremely derogatory remarks on things that I had done, made videos about me because, you know, they were told about me from him. I know that in their world and their way of thinking, a woman saying, well, men don't do ... if you're not ... was just like out of order and out of line. Women should never complain unless, you know, whatever. I didn't really read into it. I didn't watch the live. I didn't care about their comments. I would just delete and block, and then I just stopped reading. But I did think it was interesting that in my short-lived career here on YouTube, I had rubbed shoulders with him at all. I was like, that's crazy. And so that was one of my big things. So I had a couple of like, whoa, you know, feelings when he first passed, just as far as it was concerning me. Also, I was really surprised at a lot of the celebrities that I saw that came out that were supporting him. People like Tamar Braxton, Marlon Wayans. Marlon Wayans left this huge tribute to Kevin where he was like, you know, people didn't like you. That's because they didn't understand you were trying to heal us as a community. You know, you were the father. I mean, he just went in and just heaping praises on this man. And at the time, I thought, you know, well, I'll do a response video on YouTube talking about this. But after seeing just the deep reverence and the hurt that a lot of people were feeling when he passed, and then when I checked his name on YouTube to kind of see like what people were saying, a lot of it was just, we're going to miss you. We love you so much. Oh, we hate that this happened to you. I was like, I need to read the room. It's not the time to say what I want to say because it's going to be interpreted as you're celebrating that he's gone. It's going to be interpreted as you're speaking ill of the dead. And I never wanted to do any of those things, but I did want to take a second and talk about it because I saw this TikTok video. Y'all know I stay on TikTok. I saw this TikTok video the other week, and this is a video of a young woman who went to a mixer in Dallas. And when she was at the mixer, she said that no men showed up. She took that video, she posted it to TikTok. I don't know why. I should do a course. I really should do a course on how to make something viral. Like what to use, like what to do. There's a science behind it. And there's certain things that you can say, certain text you can put on something. You put it on there, people are gonna see it. So I don't know why we still in this day and age think that we can just put anything out there, nobody's gonna see it. Like people are gonna see it. And so anytime you have a Black woman talking about she went out and couldn't meet anybody, people are going to see that. They're going to watch it. They're going to pay attention. And a lot of times the reaction is not going to be positive, right? So she posts this and I was like, oh, that's really sad. Like a lot of people were that. And I went to the comments. And the comments were like, Kevin told y'all this would happen. Ha ha, yes. This is exactly what Kevin said, and y'all didn't want to listen to him. Men don't want to be around you Black women anymore. Nobody wants Black women. We told y'all we were done with Black women. Hey, you should have gone there with all your degrees. Why didn't you guys just bring your degrees to the mixer? That's what you get for being a modern woman. Nobody wants you. You know, and one guy was like, you know, I went to one of these mixers in Miami when it was Latino women. The line was out the door. Why do you Black women think nobody wanted to be there for you? It's over for you guys. And someone wrote the whole, men are going their own way. We've decided it's better to be single. We're done with y'all. And I was like, And it just reminded me of how deeply so many people believed that what Mr. Samuels brought was a good thing. What he spoke about was healthy. What he said and what he talked about and what the things that he did were positive. And I'm looking in this comment section, and it was giving extermination vibes. Like, it was giving people that were excited that an entire race of women were seemingly going to be stamped out because they chose to get degrees. Like, it just was giving extreme hate. And they were all attributing it back to what Kevin told them. And so I just wanted to take a moment and actually provide my real response, like what I really think, in a couple of ways. The first thing I want to talk about is why his message never meant anything to me. The next thing I want to talk about is how genius of a marketer he was. And the final thing I want to bring up is why his message was basically a lie. It was a lie. Let's start off with this. He referred to, right before he passed away, he referred to women my age and older, so 35 plus, never married, we're throwaway women. Society doesn't want us. Any man who meets us is going to feel like there's something wrong with us. And that's just the way it is. So I've always been very, I've always defended, the honor of women who are older and who are unmarried, because I know that they're not being married a lot of times is not just them. It's a bigger symptom of society as a whole. When you talk about the voiced political and social gain that a lot of men of color find in marrying outside of their race, and women of color, you'll see that a lot of times Black women sometimes are left behind when it comes to partnering. When you talk about the historical narrative that is the Black family and how since slavery, it has been consistently splintered over time. I'm not surprised then at the wealth and the dearth of single mothers. Like, there's a documentary on YouTube, and I'll link it below, all the way from the 1970s early 70s, where they talk about Black single mothers and how the Black family is going extinct. And so, again, when I see women that are a certain age and they're not married, I'm just like, this is a social issue. And it's much bigger than someone just being so independent they didn't want a man. And looking at it through that lens and looking at it that way is incredibly ignorant and short-sighted. And it reeks of misogyny and misogynoir. So him saying something like, you guys are throwaway women, I've heard it before. I know it isn't true. But also, just as a person, I never felt, and this is just, the truth about my life, I never felt that I was in a position that someone would need to tell me that about myself anyway. I've always been aware that maybe I'm not the first round pick. You know what I mean? Growing up as a darker skinned woman, bigger nose, when I was younger, it was not cute to have the big old butt where I was growing up. So, you have that big butt, you have this big nose, things that I know are beautiful, but I also know that people and that certain social circles and certain types of people might not feel are acceptable for their mate to have. I never felt like I was on any kind of pedestal, right? And then just going through life, you see like what the media feeds you as what is acceptable for a woman, what's acceptable for a Black woman. You have pictures like this where it's very clear what certain men in power need their partner to look like. And so for me, I was never like, oh gosh, I'm on this high pedestal. Who wants me? No. I was always aware that as a Black woman, because of things that have literally nothing to do with me, there might be some people that looked at me unfavorably. And as a result, that's going to affect my partnership capabilities. And if somebody was able to find a partner and those things didn't hit her, fantastic. She persevered. But I was never in a position where I needed somebody to tell me, oh, you're a throwaway. Yeah, I get it. You've been saying it since the day I was born. And people find love anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, that term throwaway is just so superficial. And it in and of itself is a symptom of the sickness of an entire society. So while I understand that some people have always looked at me that way, and as a result, I've never been in a situation where I'm confused as to why it's harder for me to find a partner, at the same time, I know it doesn't really have anything to do with my worth as a person. Does that make sense? You can understand that some people devalue you while at the same time understanding that you still have inherent value and inherent worth that they can never take away from you by labeling you something like a throwaway woman. I just didn't understand why so many people, when he would say things like that, when he would say, oh, well, you're not this, or you big, that's why don't nobody want you. Why so many people were like, oh, okay, like we know what fat phobia is. We know there are people thinking in those extremely superficial ways of evaluating people. Why did anyone need someone to tell them that? Why did anyone need someone to tell them these extremely hurtful things about them? And why was that seen as healing? I don't understand. Especially when a lot of the times you can look at one person who has the very issues and attributes that he was insulting, and they're doing just fine. They got it all together. So I just think life is way too nuanced to break things down the way he was breaking them down, in the extremely negative way he was breaking them down. Like, I get it. I see where he's coming from. I saw where he was coming from, but I just felt like it was extremely unnecessary. And instead, if you really wanted to help people, well, again, I'll talk about that at the end. So that's why his message never meant anything to me. I was always aware that as a woman of a certain age, when I got to be that age, and then a certain skin color, a certain size, I was always aware there were men out there who looked at me and said, I have no value, on a superficial level. And it was going to make it harder for me to find a partner. I was always aware. And if you weren't aware of it, maybe then what he was saying was helpful. But becoming aware of something like that without also understanding that there is good in the world and there are people that will accept you regardless, I just think it creates an extreme imbalance, and it's very unhealthy. And I know some people who were really, really not aware, and they heard things like that, and it deeply hurt them. It didn't heal them. It hurt them. It made them more self-conscious. It made them more anxious. It made them hate themselves. And I guess because I've always grown up knowing that people might feel that way about me, and I sort of block it out, it doesn't affect how I feel about myself. I'm like, well, I'm still me. I'm still great. I just know that this thinking is out there. So I've had practice with it. And so him just kind of dumping that on people without giving them any real positives to help them work through. There were women who were like, he helped me on my weight loss journey. He's the reason why I started. Why did it take that? Why did it take that? You can never argue with what gets people going, right? But I don't get why it took that voice. And I was talking to my friend about it, and what we were saying is a lot of times we notice within our culture, because my friend, as you saw earlier, is also a Black woman. What we notice within our culture is the ways that we speak to each other. For example, when I was a teacher, there were just different ways that I had to address Black students versus ways that I address students of other colors. And I remember walking into my first school that was not predominantly Black and speaking in my Black teacher voice, and 3 girls started crying. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to get a little softer, gotta be a little nicer. Whereas when I talk that way to Black kids, they're like, I recognize that. Okay, she wants me to sit down, do my work. You know what I'm saying? It's a totally different vibe, the way we speak to each other sometimes, the way we come at each other. And a lot of it comes from, there's so many places it comes from. I'll just say that when you feel that kind of pressure about yourself, you tend to release that pressure on other people, right? And so I'll just put it like that. So what I will say is I think people recognized in him the same voice that unfortunately Black people use to correct each other. And it's not always a voice of love. A lot of times it comes from a deeply critical place. And so, but we read it as love because we know that that's how our moms, our grandfathers, that's how our families taught, that's how you know what I mean? We read it as that. So I think people heard his criticism and read it as love. And I think that's a cultural thing. And it's something that if you're not aware of, the fact that it's not necessary for somebody to talk to you like that for you to change, you could welcome it. Oh, thank you. Thank you for speaking to me this way. But I know that for me personally, it wasn't helpful. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is what a genius marketer this man was. So right after he passed, a video came out of him before he like blew up on YouTube, talking about the difference between well, I'll just play it.
And a lot of times guys don't want to hear that truth. We just don't. If I come on here talking about, female nature and such and so forth, and if I would start bashing women or talking noise, oh man, the likes and everything would go through the roof.
So what's so crazy about this is it's crazy that it came out when it came out, right? It's like somebody was sitting on it. And what's wild is that, first of all, a lot of his supporters, when it first came out, they were like, hey, you took him out of context. People love to say you took him out of context when it's like literally, it's what he said. It's what he said. But people would literally show the video and folks would be like, nah, where the rest of the video at? Well, we don't really need to see the rest of it. He said what he said right here. And what he said was, if I were to talk to men the same way I talk to women, men don't want to hear it. I have got to do it this way so I get the views. At the end of the day, he understood I have to promote this character to make this thing work. Look, when my content first started coming out, I had the choice. I could have been a straight up misandrist. Okay? I could have been a straight up, like, I have some people that did believe. One person, there's a video out there about me comparing me to this young man who wrote all these extremely negative things about Black women. And then he was murdered by his white girlfriend. And this man compared me and him. I didn't watch it, but I was just like, really, dude? Really? You will never find in anything I've ever done me just harping at and saying I hate Black men. Never. I talk about my experiences, right? Like, oh, hey, well, this happened, this happened, this happened. But I definitely don't say, oh, I only date, these men. I don't deal with Black men. I do it. That content is out there, but it's not me. But that's just a result of somebody not listening and not having like a critical mindset and being a dumb dummy. But anyway, I could have done that though. I could have gone that route, right? Whenever I was really into doing story times, like I could have done that. I could have just kept it going. Whenever I was looking at my content and like looking at the different like reactions and stuff I was getting, I was like, I'm being reacted to like Kevin Samuels. Like I am making people as angry as he did for whatever reason with literally a 10th of the viewership, not even a 10th. A 10th would be 100,000, you know what I mean? So yeah, there's definitely, when you're creating content, like once you find the thing that makes people click, there definitely is that desire to keep producing that stuff. Like, let me keep it going. Like, they want to watch this, I'm going to keep it going. I could have made freaking 40 videos about pretty privilege if I wanted to. 40. I could have kept it going all summer and been paid. But I said no. This is not who I want to be. I don't want to just be this person just because it gets clicks. Like I have so much more to offer. Like whatever, right? And so I think when I watched that video of Kevin talking about like, okay, this is who I have to be to make this make money, I think about the fact, so Kevin was a Pisces like me.
If I feel like somebody trying to take control of, not even control, like take advantage of me, I'm a Capricorn, so I'm big hearted. So if I feel like somebody,
I get so sick of Black people with this zodiac shit.
And, I talked about in my last video, my difficulties when I was starting off my journey into adulthood when it came to making money. And a lot of Pisces men that I meet have worked a million jobs. A lot of Pisces people, period, have worked a million jobs. They've done this, they've done that, and they always are like journeymen and women of experiences from life. Who knows? Who knows how much stuff he had done before that? Who knows how many jobs he'd had? Like, who knows how like worn out? Like he literally was probably like, this is my chance to become who I think I can be. All I have to do is hold on to this messaging and I'm gonna blow up. I can see it. And he was right. He was right. But that little video let me know he also knew this is a character. This is a character that I can play. Like, I know better than that. I know it's not as simple as all this. I know that the reason a woman over 35 is considered a throwaway woman isn't because she's actually a throwaway woman, but it's because a lot of times men are superficial and they need to broaden their horizon. They're a great woman, but people don't want to hear that. If I make it her fault, if I make it seem like she did this to herself, if I lift men up, if I get, I'll be paid. I'll make money. And he was not wrong. He was not wrong. And so when I saw that, I was like, at the end of the day, dude was a genius marketer. Because I think, too, when we look at how he passed, and if you don't know how he passed, you can just look it up. But let's just say a lot was revealed about his actual state, his actual financial state, the realities of his life. He was preaching about all this stuff. And when it came down to it, it didn't get him any closer to the man that he purported to be. And in that way, I felt deep empathy for him. Pisces. I felt deep empathy for him because I know what it's like to chase something and to think it's going to get you wherever. And at the end of the day, you're still kind of lonely. You're still kind of just hanging out with yourself. And so, yeah, I felt he did not live as he preached. And he was able to get away with what he sold because he was a brilliant marketer. And he understood, if I tap into this, I'll be good. And he was right. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is why I feel in general there is just an incredible fallacy in his message. And there always was. So most of Kevin's messaging was modern Black women are the downfall of the dating community. And it's because they want to be hyper independent. I'm summing it up, right? And nobody is going to want them and nobody wants to deal with them and they're just the worst. And as is evidenced in that woman's comment section, there are a lot of men who are apparently very angry at a Black woman somewhere. And they held on to that. And they were like, yes. And there were a lot of men who were like, yeah, men are going their own way. We would just rather be single. I think I said that earlier. And I want to say that also on TikTok, what I've seen is a lot of people talking about the realities of life after you go into a care home and the type of people that nobody comes to see. And more often than not, those are men who never married or men who have a lot of kids that they don't have a relationship with. And they come in and they really do die alone. And so when I see men write things like, men go their own way, we're happy to be single. Are you? That's what you really want? It's this concept of, clearly somebody has been deeply hurt. And because they've been deeply hurt, instead of being like, but I'd still like a partner, they've just decided, no, the best thing for me to do is be single and to go my own way and to eventually, I guess, die alone. And as somebody who's also been very deeply hurt, I'm very transparent about my experiences that I've had. I still have hope. And I still would rather be in a partnership than to be alone. I don't understand how there are so many men who just, I don't know who hurt them or what happened, but they get so angry. And I talked about this in my video about the high value man era coming to an end. They get so angry that they just, women are bad, all women are terrible, ha ha ha, down with the women, down with the Black women, men are gonna be alone. I don't get it. They're very, very selfish, it's not, I can't do the work for them. It's just, but it's not where I would stop as a person on my evolution. You don't stop at the hurt, right? So anyway, here's why I feel like overall his message, there was a fallacy in it. So the biggest thing is that he presented it as truth, right? Nobody wants these women, Black women, nobody wants you. Modern women, nobody wants you. You know, this woman posting this video saying nobody showed up and, you know, everybody jumping in her comment section and saying, that's what y'all get. That is not the reality of life. And luckily for us viewers on TikTok, that particular Sunday afternoon, there was another woman who had attended the event. And she posted her take, and she was like, it's a shame when people sell their soul for views, which I thought was really dramatic. I don't think the woman who posted the first video was selling her soul for views. I think what she was doing was just reporting about her experience. She got there early at a Black event. Come on, sis. You know how we do, okay? But she had gotten there early, and when she got there, nobody was there. So she was like, oh, nobody came. Literally hours later, from the same event, lots of people, beautiful people, mixing, laughing, having a good time. I'm not going to say anybody that, I'm not going to say anybody met their husband there. Anybody met their wife there. But I will say, as a person who has stepped from behind a computer and gone outside and touched grass, I will say that the real world is not what he was talking about in those videos. The real world is not all, first of all, the real world is not all Black men that hate Black women. That's not true. The real world is not all Black men that hate dark-skinned Black women. That's not true. Somebody made a video the other day on TikTok, and they were saying that Houston, the city I'm in right now, is one of the most colorist cities they've ever been in. I've never gotten more compliments on my color than when I've been back here. So I just say that your experience is your reality, and that's really, at the end of the day, that's all we can say. But people being over the age of 35. I've introduced myself to someone and told them that I was 38 and acted like I was telling them that I had the Ebola virus, and they literally were like, "Are you all right?" Like, I'm 38 too. Are you okay? Age is what you make it.
Okay, so I know that I have come on here many times and I have talked about how I feel about getting older. And I've talked about how I feel it affects me on dating apps, especially when you get in the South and people are already in a lot of marriages and relationships. And and I've talked about just how I feel about time passing and, still not having certain things. However, when I've been out in the world and I've introduced myself to people, or we've just been having conversation, and I've told them my age, I'm the only one freaking out. I'm the only one that's like embarrassed. I'm the only one. I have never, not once, and that just might be my experience. Again, my experience is my reality. Like, I'm not going to invalidate either what that young woman was saying about this being a colorist place, because, it might be one of those things where they'll say something to her that they wouldn't say to me, right? But all I'll say is when it comes to age and being a woman over 35, over 30, sure, you probably do have some superficial men out there. You definitely do, who are like, oh, that's old. No thanks. But there are a lot of men out there who just do not care. They do not care. And so for him to present the information of any woman over 35 being looked at as a throwaway, to me, because I've experienced something different, it's an argument that's filled with fallacy. It's not true. And it's a dangerous, dangerous rhetoric to put out there, especially when people are vulnerable and they can get their feelings hurt, and it can affect how they feel about themselves and their potential when it comes to looking for a partner.
And if you look at this woman's video, these people look happy to be together. And what I really love about this is a lot of those Black women that were probably at this event probably have heard Mr. Samuel's message and I really do believe that Black women in general deserve a Purple Heart for the way that no matter what's been said about them, no matter what, a lot of times from men in our own community, they still show up. They still want to reach across the aisle. They still want partnership with those men. They'll still do whatever they can. Purple Heart, constantly moving forward, constantly, let's still try for partnership, right? But anyway, the people that actually showed up to the event, the other videos that were posted, to me, that shows what not only actual healing looks like, but a correct vision and correct version of what's actually happening in the world in certain places. Not everywhere. This just got posted on Twitter last week about the NBA and about how a lot of, Black athletes go and they find wives that are not Black, and they have the, and how the NBA is going to be all biracial and, whatever. So, you do have men who are consistently like, I'm done. I want to date out. I want to do whatever. But it's not everybody. It's not everywhere. It's not the whole story. And most importantly, when we talk about something that is being done to heal, these are the kind of events that heal. These are the kind of things that bring communities back together. People actually stepping from behind their computer, stepping from behind what they think somebody will or will not like about them, and taking a moment to really mix, to shake hands, to get to know each other, to connect. Connection brings healing, not criticism. And that is what I disagree with. That's the biggest fallacy that I see in his legacy, is that it was based on criticism and criticism alone and not connection. And at the end of the day, like, that's not how healing works. That's not how love works. And I don't see why people don't see that. But to each his own. Like I said, this video was not meant to sully the name of the dead at all. I definitely believe that his presence was an extreme, it was definitely something to learn from. It was definitely a moment in the history of the YouTube platform. He definitely had it. One of the things I talked about with my friend is that he's definitely a person who had an anointing. And that's a very like churchy word, but he had the ability to really reach and to talk to people. And that's not something that everybody has. But I will always find fault in his message because it was just based on one thing: gloom, doom, insulting. And it wasn't based on connecting and really healing people and focusing on bringing communities together in spite of. Bringing people together in spite of. I've been talking for a while. My throat's a little dry. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say about Mr. Samuels. I did want to speak on it because this time last year, he was speaking about me. It was the most surreal event in the world. After years of kind of watching him do his thing and listening to his messaging, I was the subject of some of his content. And I'll never forget how weird that was for me. And so when he passed, I felt in a weird way we were connected. And so I did want to speak on, just like in general, my opinions about whatever. And like I said, I really, really talked about it like extremely raw and uncut on my Patreon. And what's funny about that is he meant so much to so many people. Normally the people that subscribe to my Patreon are people that actually like me as a person, or like my content. And so when I make a video, like YouTube will tell you how many likes and dislikes you have, and it gives you a grade. It's like if everybody watched your video, liked it, it's 100%, whatever. Most of my videos are between 98% and 90%. The only video that I've had to fall almost under 90 is my video about Will Smith and the slap. People were pissed about that video. They did not like my take on that. And it is what it is. But that's the only video that I've had that's gotten an incredible amount of dislikes. Most of the time it's between 98 and 90. On my Patreon, it's literally always 100% because those are people that actually like me and they like my content and they tend to agree with my opinions. And my Kevin Samuels video was the only video that I've ever had on my Patreon that got like a thumbs down. That someone was like, I don't like this. He meant so much to so many people for reasons I will never understand. And I want to say too, because he was such a great marketer, the man that we knew on YouTube and the real man in real life could have been totally different. He could have been a nice person. He could have been a compassionate, but I know him from this platform and I know the message that he put out. So that's what I have to speak on. And I will always disagree with his message. Anyway, those are my feelings. Like I said, if you wanted to hear more, if you care to hear more, it's been a while, so you're probably like over it. But my more in-depth feelings are over on my Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching.